Mother-in-law wore a white gown to my wedding and tried to cut the cake with my husband, so I spilled red wine on her dress accidentally, and now my husband refuses to go on our honeymoon until I pay for her dry cleaning. My husband Ryan and I have been together for 3 years, and we just got married last weekend. I was working as a graphic designer for a marketing firm until about 6 months ago when the wedding planning completely took over my life. Ryan comes from a pretty wealthy family, and they had very specific expectations about what this wedding needed to look like, so we decided I would step back from freelance work to manage the event planning full-time. Honestly, I was already stressed out from the job, so I thought focusing on the wedding would be a fun creative outlet. But ever since we got engaged, his mother, Donna, has been making these little comments about how I don't really understand their world and how I'm lucky Ryan is willing to guide me through proper society. At first, I tried to ignore it because Ryan said she was just being protective and that she'd relax once the wedding was over, but she never did. If anything, she got worse the closer we got to the date. Like at our engagement party last year, she made a toast where she kept bringing up Ryan's ex-girlfriend, who was apparently a pageant queen or something. Donna kept saying how different I was from the girls Ryan used to date and how interesting it was that he chose someone so unconventional. Everyone just laughed like it was a joke, but I could tell she wasn't joking. And Ryan just stood there holding his glass and didn't say anything, which made me feel really small. Then there was the time in March when Ryan's sister, Sophia, went bridal dress shopping with us. Donna kept pulling these huge, puffy ball gowns off the rack and telling me that I needed something to hide my hips and that the sleek, modern dress I liked looked cheap. She kept looking at me in the mirror with this pinched expression, and I wanted to say something, but I didn't want to cause a scene in the bridal salon. But the thing is, I did everything to make this wedding perfect for them, and I worked really hard even though they acted like I was just playing dress up. I hand calligraphed 200 invitations because Donna didn't like the fonts the printer offered. I sourced specific out-of-season peonies because Donna said roses were pedestrian. I managed all of the vendor contracts and organized the seating chart, which Donna changed 5 times. I even helped Donna with her own preparations when she was being difficult. Like when she couldn't find shoes to match her mother of the groom outfit in May, I drove her to 6 different luxury malls in 3 different cities because Ryan was too busy with work. I returned countless pairs for her, standing in line at the post office for hours. I even spent weeks researching makeup artists who specialized in mature skin because she was paranoid about looking old in the photos. She never once thanked me for any of it and actually complained that I drove too fast, even though I was acting as her free chauffeur. Then there was the whole thing with the rehearsal dinner in August, where she wanted to host it at their country club, but didn't want to deal with the menu tasting. So I spent 3 weeks coordinating with the club's chef. I went to 4 different tastings, designed the menu cards, and picked out the linens. I even organized a special slideshow of photos of her and Ryan from his childhood because she wanted a mother-son moment. She barely acknowledged that I put it together and kept telling people that Sophia helped pick the photos, even though Sophia literally just sent me a Dropbox link and did nothing else. Anyway, the wedding was last Saturday, and I was actually looking forward to it because Ryan had promised me that once the ceremony started, it would just be about us. Donna had been acting surprisingly quiet the week before, so I thought maybe things were finally getting better between us and she was accepting that I was joining the family. The morning of the wedding, I was getting ready with my bridesmaids and I felt really beautiful. Then we got to the venue. I was in the bridal suite putting on my veil when Sophia came in looking weirdly pale. She didn't say anything, just told me to breathe. I walked down the aisle, focused on Ryan, and we had a lovely ceremony. I didn't really look at the crowd until we turned around to walk back up the aisle as husband and wife. That's when I saw her. Donna was standing in the front row, right next to the aisle. She was wearing a floor-length gown, and it wasn't cream or champagne or silver. It was white. Stark bridal white. It had lace sleeves and a train. I swear it looked almost exactly like a wedding dress. I actually got confused for a second, thinking maybe I was hallucinating from the stress. Everyone was looking at her and then looking at me. I was smiling and holding Ryan's hand, whispering, "Is she wearing white?" And Ryan just squeezed my hand and whispered back, "It's just a very pale platinum, honey, don't start." But I could tell he was uncomfortable, but still didn't say anything to her. I just kept walking, feeling like everyone was whispering about us. I wanted to cry, but I was so angry that I kept a frozen smile on my face. At the reception, Donna kept going on about how she chose the dress because white symbolizes new beginnings, and she wanted to celebrate her son's new chapter. She kept posing for photos with Ryan, adjusting her train so it fanned out, basically looking like the bride. Ryan's dad was laughing, saying she looked like a movie star, and even Sophia was telling her she looked stunning. I felt like I was going to throw up. I managed to get through the first dance and I sat at the head table. We ate dinner and I pretended everything was fine, but inside I was planning exactly what I was going to do because I knew this was the final straw. I wasn't going to let her hijack my wedding like that and get away with it. For the next 2 hours of the reception, I watched her. Every time I looked at her floating around the room in that white dress, I got more and more angry. I started noticing how she was positioning herself in every picture to be right next to Ryan, pushing me to the side. I saw her directing the photographer to take solo shots of her. I watched her accept compliments from guests who looked visibly confused. I listened to her tell my aunt that she didn't realize white was reserved for the bride, which was a lie because we had a whole conversation about color palettes months ago. I calculated exactly how much she was enjoying the attention, and it was 100% intentional. She wanted to show me that even on my wedding day, she was the most important woman in Ryan's life. Then I started thinking about the cake cutting, which was coming up in 20 minutes. I saw the cake table, and I saw the bottles of red wine on the tables nearby, and I knew exactly what I was going to do with that white dress. The more I thought about it, the more perfect it seemed because she was going to get a permanent souvenir of her new beginning. The DJ announced the cake cutting, and Ryan grabbed my hand to lead me to the cake. Donna was already there, hovering right by the cake knife. The photographer was setting up the shot. Donna was standing so close to Ryan that she was practically touching him. She was beaming, adjusting her lace sleeves. When we picked up the knife, Donna actually reached out and put her hand over Ryan's hand like they were going to cut the cake together. She said, "Let me help you, sweetie, it's a big cake." Everyone was watching. I was standing there holding the knife with Ryan, and his mother was literally trying to cut our wedding cake with him. Ryan laughed nervously and didn't pull away. He just looked at me like, just let her do it. I stood there for a second, and I realized I didn't want to be there anymore in that dynamic. So I let go of the knife. I stepped back and picked up a full glass of Cabernet Sauvignon from the table next to me. It was a really large glass filled to the brim. Donna was smiling at the camera, holding Ryan's hand on the knife, looking for all the world like the bride. I walked up behind her, pretended to trip on my own dress, and launched the entire glass of red wine all over the back of her white gown. It went everywhere. It soaked into the lace, ran down the train, and splattered onto the floor. It was a massive, dark red stain that looked like a crime scene. She screamed. It was this high-pitched shriek that stopped the music. She spun around, and her face went from shock to horror to fury in about 3 seconds. She looked down at her dress, which was now ruined. Everyone was gasping, and she was just staring at me. Ryan asked what happened, and Donna pointed at me and screamed that I had done it on purpose and that I was a jealous, clumsy idiot. I stood up straight and said, "Actually, I just thought since you wanted to be the bride so badly, you should have something old, something new, something borrowed, and something red." She started yelling about how dare I ruin her couture gown and how ungrateful I was, and how she had paid for the flowers so she deserved respect. I laughed and said, "Well, consider this wine a contribution to your outfit, since you clearly forgot the rule about not wearing white to a wedding." Then I started listing off everything she had done. I said, "This stain is for the engagement toast where you humiliated me. This splash is for the time you made me drive you to 6 malls for shoes you returned. And the dripping part is for trying to cut my wedding cake with my husband." Everyone was just staring at us, and Donna was getting more and more upset. She said I was being hysterical and that she was just trying to help Ryan with the cake because the knife was heavy. I said, "Exactly. That's what I've been trying to tell you for 3 years, but apparently when I try to be the wife, you have to step in and be the mother wife." Ryan finally spoke up and said, "Maybe we should all calm down." Donna turned on him and said, "How could you let your wife ruin my dress like this?" He looked back and forth between us, and I could tell he was trying to figure out who to side with. Honestly, I was getting tired of waiting for him to grow a spine. I put the empty glass down on the table, and I said, "Here, you can keep the glass as a reminder that just because you buy the flowers doesn't mean you get to trample on the bride. Maybe next time you want to wear a wedding dress, you should renew your own vows instead of crashing mine." Donna started crying and saying I was cruel and heartless, and that she had only worn the dress because she wanted to feel beautiful on her son's big day. She said she was trying to look her best for the pictures. I said, "Well, congratulations, because you're definitely going to stand out in the pictures now." Sophia jumped in and said I was being a psycho, and that Donna spent thousands on that dress. I turned to her and said, "Funny how she never spent a dime helping us with the down payment on a house, but she has thousands for a dress to upstage me. But somehow, when I spill a little wine, it's a tragedy." That's when things really blew up because Sophia started yelling about how I was jealous, and Donna was sobbing with mascara running down her face, and Ryan's dad was telling everyone to clear the room. Ryan was just standing there looking like he wanted to disappear. And I realized I didn't want to be at my own reception anymore. So I grabbed my purse and went to the hotel room. I sat in the honeymoon suite alone, and Ryan didn't come up until really late. When he did, he was furious and went straight to the bathroom to change. We haven't really talked about it since, except he did say that his mother cried for 3 hours in the lobby about how mean I was to her and how I ruined the wedding and how she doesn't understand why I hate her so much. Ryan's sister has been texting, saying I went too far and that Donna is really hurt and that I should apologize and pay for the dress. But I don't think I should have to apologize for defending myself against her blatant disrespect. Even now, Ryan still hasn't really taken my side. He keeps saying we both need to apologize and move on, that his mother didn't mean to upstage me and I should have handled it differently. Donna has been calling and texting him, saying she wants to talk and work things out. But every message is about how I ruined her gown and humiliated her, not once acknowledging that maybe wearing a bridal gown to your son's wedding is inappropriate. Yesterday, she sent this text to Ryan about how she realizes maybe the dress was a bit light in color, but that she only wanted to coordinate with the decor and didn't think I would be so insecure about it. She said the red wine stain has ruined the silk completely. Even when she's trying to explain, she's still basically saying I'm insecure and violent. Ryan wants to have dinner this weekend so we can all talk and work things out. He said she's willing to forgive the accident if I pay for the dry cleaning or replacement of the dress, but I need to admit my response was inappropriate. I don't understand why I'm being asked to pay for a dress she shouldn't have been wearing. So am I wrong for spilling the wine? Update 1 yesterday, Ryan came home from work and said he wanted to have a serious conversation about our honeymoon and his family. I thought finally he was going to say let's just go to Hawaii and forget about them, but that's not what happened. He said he loves me but thinks maybe I'm being too sensitive, that his mother's fashion sense is just different from mine, and the dress was probably meant to be elegant rather than competitive. I said, Ryan, your mother literally tried to hold your hand while you cut the wedding cake. How is that supposed to be elegant? He said maybe she was trying to be helpful because the fondant was thick, that maybe the optics were wrong, but the intention wasn't malicious. Then he said my response was disproportionate, that destroying an expensive gown in front of all our guests was cruel, and that he's never seen me be that aggressive before. He said it made him wonder if I'm becoming a different person, that maybe the wedding planning stress made me too focused on being the center of attention instead of celebrating with family. I told him, I'm not becoming a different person. I'm becoming a person who doesn't accept being erased at her own wedding. If he thinks defending my place as the bride makes me aggressive, then maybe he doesn't know me as well as he thinks. He said his mother called him crying again, that she's been trying to find a specialist dry cleaner who can remove red wine from silk, but it's looking hopeless. She really wants to resolve this, but doesn't know how to talk to someone who would destroy property like that. Then Ryan said something that really shocked me, that maybe we should postpone the honeymoon because he doesn't feel right going on a vacation when there is this outstanding debt to his mother. I said, I'm not in debt to your mother. She owes me an apology for trying to turn my wedding into her renewal ceremony. If he wants to cancel the honeymoon so he can use the money to buy her a new dress, then fine, but I'm not paying a cent. The conversation went on for 2 hours, just going in circles. Finally, he said he's going to hold off on booking the excursions for Hawaii until I agree to pay for the cleaning or replacement, which is about $800. I said I'm not agreeing to pay for anything until she can admit that wearing white and grabbing the cake knife was hurtful and wrong, regardless of what she claims her intentions were. He got frustrated and said I'm being impossible, that I'm never going to be satisfied with any apology she gives because I want her to crawl. I said I don't want her to crawl. I want her to act like a guest and not the bride. This morning, Ryan was already gone when I woke up. There was a note saying he went to his parents' house to talk to them about the situation, that he'd be back later, and that he hopes we can find a way to work this out because he doesn't want to start our marriage like this. The note made me feel sick because it felt like blackmail. I called my sister and told her what Ryan said. She said, it sounds like he's trying to manipulate you into backing down by holding the honeymoon hostage. If he really loved and supported you, he wouldn't be prioritizing his mother's dress over your first trip as a married couple. Ryan got home around 6:00, looking tired and stressed. He said he had a long talk with his parents, that his mother is really struggling with this situation and genuinely doesn't understand why I saw her as a threat. His father thinks I owe Donna the $800 immediately. Sophia thinks I should just pay it to keep the peace because Donna is really upset about the dress being ruined, and the whole family thinks I'm being dramatic and holding a grudge over a fashion choice. I said, so let me get this straight. Your entire family thinks your mother cosplaying as the bride is just a fashion choice, but me spilling wine is a crime. He said, that's not what they're saying. They just think your response was more hurtful than her original action because you destroyed property. I said her original action destroyed my memories of my wedding reception, but apparently that doesn't count. He said, it's different because she didn't mean to hurt you, but you definitely meant to ruin the dress. I said, you're absolutely right. I did mean to ruin it because she ruined my day first, and maybe now she knows how it feels to have something important taken away. Ryan looked at me and said he's never heard me talk like that before, that it scares him to see me being so vengeful. I said it's not vengeful to demand respect, and if that scares you, maybe you should think about why you're more comfortable with me being a doormat than standing up for myself. We had another huge fight. Ryan said he's going to stay at his parents' house tonight because he needs space to think. I said, fine. Maybe that's for the best because I need space to think about whether I want to be married to someone who cancels our honeymoon to pay for his mother's delusions. After he left, I realized this isn't just about the white dress or Donna's behavior. It's about the fact that Ryan has never once defended me or taken my side when his family treats me badly. He always finds a way to make their behavior my bill to pay. Update 2, it's been a week since my last update. Ryan stayed at his parents' house for 3 days. During that time, Donna kept calling and texting, saying she wanted to come over and talk, that she was sorry I felt upstaged, and hoped we could work things out like family should. Every message made me angrier because she still wasn't taking any real responsibility. On the 3rd day, she showed up at my house uninvited, standing at my door with tears in her eyes, holding a garment bag. She said she couldn't stand having this tension in the family and needed to make things right between us. I didn't want to let her in, but I also didn't want to have this conversation on my front porch where neighbors could hear. She came in and sat on my couch, talking about how she's been losing sleep over this whole situation and never meant to ruin my big day. She said she realizes now that the white dress might have been a poor choice, but she was only trying to look formal enough for the venue. I said, Donna, the problem isn't just the dress. The problem is that you grabbed the knife to cut the cake with my husband. She said she didn't remember doing that exactly, that maybe I saw it wrong or took it the wrong way. She was literally trying to gaslight me about something that is in the wedding photos. She kept going, saying she's always supported us, that she was just feeling emotional about losing her son, and sometimes mothers get a little overzealous. Then she opened the garment bag. It was the ruined dress. She pointed to the stain and said she found a cleaner who thinks they can save it for $400, not $800, so she was hoping I would appreciate the discount she found for me. Even when she's trying to apologize, she's still basically handing me a bill. That's when I completely lost it. I said, you know what, you're right. I am being too sensitive because apparently I'm the only person in this family who thinks trying to be the bride at someone else's wedding is weird. She started crying, saying that's not true, that she loves me like a daughter and just wants what's best for us. I said, if you loved me like a daughter, you wouldn't have worn a wedding dress to my wedding, and you wouldn't be sitting here asking me for $400. The conversation went on for another hour, just her making excuses and me getting more frustrated. Finally, I said she needed to leave because this wasn't getting us anywhere. She said she wasn't leaving until we worked this out because family doesn't sue each other over dry cleaning bills. I said, well then I guess we're not family because I'm not paying that bill. She finally left, but not before saying she was disappointed in me and thought I was a bigger person than this. She hoped someday I would understand that everything she does comes from a place of love and tradition. I slammed the door behind her. I immediately called Ryan and told him his mother had come to my house uninvited with the dress, that the conversation had gone badly, and I needed him to come home. He said he was in the middle of something at work but would come home that evening. I said, no, I needed him to come home now because I just had a 2-hour fight with his mother in our living room, and I'm done pretending this is okay. When he got home, I told him everything that happened and how his mother had tried to gaslight me about the cake cutting. Even her compromise was just a cheaper bill. He listened without saying much, then said, maybe she really doesn't remember grabbing the knife, and maybe you should consider that her memory of the event might be blurred by the alcohol or emotion. I said, Ryan, there's a literal photo of her hand on yours on the knife. Are you seriously suggesting I imagined it? He said he hasn't seen the proofs from the photographer yet, so he doesn't know exactly what it looked like. Maybe there's been some misinterpretation of her body language. That's when I realized Ryan had never actually looked at the photos guests took. He was perfectly willing to assume I was exaggerating or misinterpreting rather than looking at the evidence. I said, "So, you're going to take her word over mine about what happened at our reception?" He said he's not taking anyone's word over anyone else's. He's just trying to understand why there seems to be such a big difference between what I felt and what she intended. Maybe if we could all sit down together, we could figure out a payment plan for the cleaning so we can move on. I said, "There's no payment plan, Ryan. Your mother hijacked our wedding. Everyone saw it. And now you're all acting like I'm the villain for spilling a drink." We had another huge fight. Ryan said he feels stuck in the middle between his wife and his mother, that he doesn't know how to make everyone happy. Maybe we should just agree to split the cost of the cleaning and focus on the honeymoon. I said, "I'm not agreeing to pay a dime because that validates her behavior." The next day, Ryan went back to work. I spent the whole day thinking about everything that had happened and realized I was never going to get the honeymoon or the respect I wanted. Ryan was never going to take my side, and his family was always going to see me as the clumsy girl who ruined the dress. I called my sister and told her about Donna's visit and Ryan's reaction. She said, "It sounds like you're married to a man who will always choose his mother over you, and you need to decide if that's something you can live with for the rest of your life." That evening, Ryan came home and said he had talked to his mother. She was really upset about how our conversation had gone and felt like I had been hostile and unwilling to listen to her compromise. She was starting to think maybe I didn't want to be part of the family at all. I said, "Maybe she's right. Maybe I don't want to have a relationship with someone who thinks wearing white to a wedding is an innocent mistake." Then he said something that really shocked me. His mother had suggested maybe I should talk to someone about my jealousy issues because she was concerned about how competitive I had been during the wedding planning. Maybe I was dealing with some insecurity about not coming from money and it might be affecting my judgment about her dress. I said, "Are you kidding me? Your mother wears a wedding gown to my wedding and then suggests I need therapy for jealousy when I get mad, and you think that's reasonable?" I realized Ryan and his family had decided I was the problem. No matter what I said or did, they were going to find a way to make it my fault. I was fighting a battle I could never win because they had already decided I was wrong and his mother was the victim. I told Ryan I was done discussing this. If he wanted to believe his mother's version of events over mine, that was his choice. But I wasn't going to keep defending myself to people who had already made up their minds. He said I was giving up too easily, that marriage requires compromise and forgiveness. I said marriage also requires loyalty, and I haven't gotten that from him during this whole situation. Yesterday morning, Ryan was already gone when I woke up. There was another note saying he was going to his parents' house again, that he needed time to think about our marriage and whether we could find a way to work through our problems. He hoped I would think about what I really wanted because this couldn't go on much longer. I read that note and felt this weird sense of relief. I had been so focused on trying to get them to admit they were wrong that I hadn't really thought about what I actually wanted. What I actually wanted was to not have to deal with any of this anymore. I spent the day packing up my wedding gifts and organizing things. That evening, Ryan came home looking terrible, like he hadn't slept. He sat down at the kitchen table and said we needed to have a serious conversation about our future. He said he had been talking to his parents and Sophia, that they all agreed this situation had gotten out of hand and everyone needed to take a step back. His mother was willing to pay half the cleaning fee if I was willing to pay the other half, and maybe we could all start fresh. I said, "What exactly would I be paying for?" He said for the damage to the dress, for the scene at the reception, and for refusing to accept that her intentions weren't malicious, even if her choice was poor. I said, so I would be paying for defending myself, for not accepting a fake compromise, and for refusing to pretend that wearing a bridal gown was actually meant to honor me. He said when I put it like that, it sounded bad. But sometimes we have to pay a little to keep the peace, even when we're not wrong about the underlying issue. I looked at him sitting there asking me to pay $200 to his mother for ruining my wedding and realized this was never going to end. Even if I paid this time, the next time his mother did something crazy, he would expect me to handle it better. And the time after that, he would expect me to just ignore it. Eventually, I would be expected to fund whatever humiliation they wanted to give me. I said, "Ryan, I'm not paying for anything because I didn't do anything wrong. If you can't see that, then maybe we don't have the same values and maybe this marriage isn't working." He said I was being dramatic, that every marriage has problems and we just needed to learn how to communicate better. I said, "This isn't a communication problem. This is a respect problem. You don't respect me enough to defend me when your family treats me badly. You don't respect me enough to believe me when I tell you what happened. And you don't respect me enough to acknowledge that I have a right to be upset when someone tries to cut my cake. He said he does respect me, but I'm making this more complicated than it needs to be. His mother isn't a bad person. She's just eccentric, and I need to learn how to not take everything so personally. Then he said maybe we should separate for a while so we can both think about what we want and figure out if we can find a way to make this work. I said, maybe that's a good idea because I'm tired of being married to someone who thinks his mother's dress is more important than my feelings. He looked surprised, like he hadn't expected me to agree. He said he didn't mean permanently, just for a few weeks so we could get some perspective. I said, okay, but I want you to know I'm not going to change my mind about this, and I'm not going to pay for the dry cleaning just because you can't handle conflict with your family. This morning, Ryan packed a bag and said he was going to stay with his parents for a while. He hoped we could work things out, but he needed me to really think about whether I wanted to be part of his family, or if I just wanted to be right about this situation. I said I want to be part of a family that treats me with respect, and if that's not your family, then maybe I need to find a different family. After he left, I called my sister and told her what happened. She said she was proud of me for not backing down, that it sounded like Ryan was showing his true colors. Maybe this separation would help you see clearly what kind of marriage you actually have versus what kind you thought you had. She also said she had been worried about me for a while because she could see how unhappy I was every time I talked about Ryan's family. She thought I had been trying so hard to make them like me that I had lost sight of whether I actually liked them and whether being part of their family was actually what I wanted. I've been alone in the house for 2 days now, and it's been really quiet but also really peaceful. I've been thinking about what I want my life to look like and whether I want to spend the next 30 years dealing with Donna's white dresses and Ryan's inability to stand up for me. Honestly, I don't think I want to spend the next 30 years dealing with this.